Here are 4 fundamental mindset shifts that would allow you to unlock ChatGPT's full potential. ChatGPT has the potential to improve every aspect of your life if you know how to wield it. Because ChatGPT is like a pair of nunchucks. But to explain why, I need to show you a few examples. If you put in the prompt, write me a book about productivity, you get something that looks a little bit like this. It's got a title, it's got a page of contents, and it's got some short chapters. But this is not a full book. What are you going to do with this? Nobody's going to buy this. It's just a bunch of regurgitated cliches. Many people give up at this point, and that's where the first mistake is made. Because let's compare this output to the output of using a more comprehensive planning prompt. So now I've asked ChatGPT to suggest a detailed non-fiction book writing process. Map out each stage and the exact outputs needed to move on to the next step. What you get here is the entire process. And then what you must do is use each of these points as prompts individually. You then go through the entire process step by step. So for example, if I were to focus just on titling right now, I would take this point, create a working title, and use this as a basis for a prompt. I would input exactly this. So now I'd go in and say, create 10 options for a working title on a book on productivity. Come up with creative angles on creativity for digital entrepreneurs. And now we get 10 ideas for titles, everything from digital dynamo to cultivating creativity. And by breaking down the process, we can improve our outputs. Now, you can get a little bit more advanced and connect each of these prompts you develop, and you link them together into a super prompt. And this is known as chain of thought prompting. And that is a key technique to understand to elaborate and improve your processes inside of ChatGPT. Okay, so now you can understand the importance of linking prompts together, like the chain in your nunchuck. But to take this one step further, instead of thinking of a chain, you can think of a tree. Let me explain. If you are putting in an input and based on certain results, you can ask ChatGPT to take other actions. So if it comes up with, for example, an idea that leads it down a different path, you want it to take a different set of processes. And this is known as a tree of thoughts. So let me show you an example of this in practice. Imagine 3 different experts are answering this question. All experts will write down one step of their thinking, then share it with the group. Then all experts will go on to the next step. If any expert realizes they're wrong at any point, then they leave. The question is, and from there you can add your own question. And the reason why this process is so useful is because it enables large language models like ChatGPT to self-evaluate the progress in intermediate steps. And this helps them move towards solving a problem through a deliberate reasoning process. Great job. So now we've got prompt chaining and trees of thought. So remember, ChatGPT is your assistant, not your slave. ChatGPT is your guide, not a genie. It will not perform miracles, but you can ask it to help you find the answers. It is a multiplier of your own creativity, your own perception, and your own understanding of processes. You can imagine that you are the composer and ChatGPT is the orchestra that you're orchestrating to play the music that you have brought. Now, the next move to add to your arsenal is to understand that ChatGPT is for reasoning, not for fact recall. Many people go into ChatGPT expecting it to be a library of information, but that's not the right approach. What you want to do is to set some guardrails, ask ChatGPT to start thinking within those guardrails and see what it comes up with. For example, if you ask it for famous quotes about a certain topic, let's say inspiration, it's very likely that ChatGPT will actually fabricate and invent quotes that do not exist. So you might ask ChatGPT to write you a set of quotes in the style of the philosopher Alan Watts, and these will actually meet the requirements of your prompt. This plays on the strength of ChatGPT to understand that it's for reasoning, for creating within a set of parameters, not for regurgitating facts. Now, another little mindset shift that I think is particularly potent is when you're trying to get ChatGPT to have an opinion on something, it often refuses. Take this example, where I've asked ChatGPT its views on what will be the future of global warming. But to get a better insight, you can actually ask ChatGPT for probabilities. Asking it to think in probabilities gives you the ability to think in bets and not get ChatGPT to simply refuse to give its opinion on a situation. So if you've got an important life decision to make, you could enter in exactly the components that make it up about whether you should take a new job or whether you should start a new relationship. You can put these in and develop probabilities coming out. Now let's move on to one of my favorite concepts. Leonardo da Vinci once said that art lives from constraints and dies from freedom. Now, how does this relate to prompting with ChatGPT? Well, it's important to have guided creativity. For creative tasks, guide the AI by providing a clear direction and concept. Remember, the AI is not inherently creative, but it can generate responses based on its trained data that meet certain parameters. So being specific is key. Asking exactly what you want and defining what is the outcome that you are looking for will give you greater potential. So for example, you might ask for a set of brand names for a certain company. Now, you might want it to rhyme, or you might want it to be alliterative. What you're going to do is start to put constraints inside of ChatGPT. So for example, I might ask it to give me 15 creative names for a brand. And the company creates AI responses for dating apps. I want these names to be either alliterative or to rhyme. And I want at least 50% of them to start with the letter S. Next up is a method that will be particularly familiar for actors. You can ask ChatGPT to take on a certain role. And this is important because you would not ask your psychotherapist to perform brain surgery. You would not ask your cook to give you a massage. And so what we can do is we can inform ChatGPT to take on a certain role. One prompt I play around with a lot is, I want you to act as a psychotherapist, psychologist, and life coach. Reflect back to me musings, insights, and questions on the following input. Now, once I get an output from this, I might ask it to reply to me in the style of Sigmund Freud, or mix that up and ask it to reply to me in the style of Gabor Mate, one of my favorite psychiatrists. You can ask it to be anyone, even Albert Einstein discussing relativity. In doing so, you can create incredibly engaging and insightful dialogues that open up new realms of understanding. So remember, ChatGPT, the only limit is your imagination. You can take this one step further and even ask ChatGPT to imagine a dialogue between two people exploring the concept that you've asked it to think about. There is a useful resource, Prompts Chat, which has a library of different role-playing prompts that you can explore. Everything from English translation to JavaScript consoles. Everything from acting as a debater to a musician. From a screenwriter to a rapper. You must become... Next up, it's time to get a little bit strict, because feedback is the breakfast of champions. You must question quality in everything you do. Let us think of athletes. Average athletes want to be left alone. Good athletes want to be coached, but great athletes want to be told the truth. So you must think of ChatGPT like an athlete that you are training, that you are coaching. One major mistake that people have with ChatGPT is they take the first output they get. But it's very important to give feedback to ChatGPT. So you can tell ChatGPT that you want it to be more concise, you want it to be more formal, more casual, more insightful, more arrogant, more proud. You want it to explain it in a more complicated way. You want it to include a certain detail, a certain piece of wit or humor. And doing this, you can start to fine-tune the exact tone, style, and output that you get. Now, to take this one step further, this is a fundamental concept that I think revolutionizes the way that you can use ChatGPT. You can ask it to evaluate its own work. Let's say you're writing the hook for a blog post. You can ask it, how well does this hook work at engaging the reader? And then based on this feedback, you can then ask ChatGPT to directly incorporate it into its work. But what I particularly recommend you do is ask it to get feedback in a number of different points, and then select the ones that you think match your own understanding of what would equate to an effective hook. Remember, ChatGPT is only as good as your ability to prompt. Think of feedback as a two-way street with you and ChatGPT in constant dialogue, growing and learning together. Do not think about using ChatGPT as a dictation, but as a conversation. So we just looked at providing feedback after you get an output. But now we're going to do the inverse. We're going to be looking at priming with purpose, crafting with context. Benjamin Franklin said, "Tell me, and I forget. Teach me, and I may remember. Involve me, and I learn." And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to be involving ChatGPT at every step of the way. So an example of how this might work is, you can say, "ChatGPT, here is a collection of emails that I've written. I want you to note the tone, the context, the length, and the style that I use in my communications. Now, based on this, I want you to respond to the following email in my own voice." This context, this priming, trains ChatGPT on your own voice. Another thing you might want to do is, "Here is a collection of journal entries for myself. I want you to reply as me and allow us to have a conversation back and forth." So remember to break down your processes into singular moves, to build up your combinations into super prompts, to take on the role of whoever it is that you want to be talking to, and to prime, to practice and rehearse the movements, the engagements, the dynamics that exist. If you want to learn more about prompt engineering, I have an entire course on Udemy, and there is a special discount for viewers of my channel available in the description. In this course, we actually go through writing the prompts, about how to define reusable prompts for a whole host of different situations. I'm Samson Vols, and on this channel, we talk about getting the most out of AI. Thanks for watching. Make sure to watch this video next for more on learning how to wield AI.